Hello everyone, this is a little follow-up video relating to the beat choices and more specifically, the Breton language. While researching information about Breton, I went down quite the rabbit hole and discovered a whole lot of things that are very interesting and I think are very important to talk about. Now the story of Breton is a very sad one, truth be told. It's been pushed around, abused and neglected over the centuries and is in very real danger of disappearing. Now this is the map that I based myself off of in the choices video when I said that there are approximately 210,000 speakers of Breton. Now it's a great map and all, pretty. However, I don't think it's entirely accurate. Now, the numbers in all of the Celtic languages is very nuanced and a bit off, but the one I'm most skeptical about is the Breton one, 210,000 speakers. Let me explain. Brittany was first united with the Kingdom of France in 1532, but with special rights as if it was a separate nation under the same crown, kind of like what happened with Scotland. However, it wasn't until the French Revolution in 1789 that Brittany became an integral part of France. This was a turning point for the Breton language, one from which it will likely never recover from again. According to Article 2 of the French Constitution, the language of the Republic is French, and if you speak anything else, then you are invited to fiche le camp, as the French say. Now, after the French Revolution, there were many laws introduced aimed at strengthening the unity of all regions of France and promoting a single French identity. For example, in 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte introduced a law that obliged parents to choose their child's name only out of a few approved catalogs of names of Catholic saints, revolutionary heroes, and historic figures. So if you wanted to name your kid by a Breton name like Gwendal, Soazig, or Erwan, well, you'd be invited to do the Michael Jackson and beat it. Which, by the way, while the law did get relaxed a bit over the years, it didn't get officially cancelled until 1993. French began rapidly replacing Breton all over Brittany. In 1845, teachers in Finistère, the westernmost department of Brittany, were told, "Above all, gentlemen, remember that you have no higher purpose than to kill the Breton language." They really couldn't make it any more clear if they tried, I think. By the time World War II rolled around, Breton was already in a dire situation. Fonche-Leguet, a Breton sociologist, argues that the army experience totally reinforced the Bretons' negative view of their own language. He quotes an 80-year-old as saying, "If you cannot defend yourself in French, what can you do? You can only keep quiet and let others step all over you." Teachers used ridicule, humiliation, and corporal punishment to try to convince the kids to stop speaking Breton in the school, or altogether, really. A kid caught speaking Breton in school would get this iron ring thing hung around their neck called le symbole, and they would get laughed at. And just as a cherry on top of the sadistic sundae, the system made it so the only way that a kid can get rid of le symbole is by snitching on another kid speaking Breton. And the kid who was stuck with it at the end of the day would get beaten or assigned manual labor. This made the kids not just turn against the language, but against each other as well, instilling an inner resentment for their own language and people from early childhood. This was unfortunately common practice when it came to other Celtic languages as well. The Welsh had Welsh knot and the Irish had tally stick, very similar to the Breton le symbole. This isn't just exclusive to Celtic languages though. This was and still is a thing in many parts of the world. So much so that nowadays some younger Breton speakers are reported to complain about having a hard time speaking with older Breton speakers because they would get told, "I can speak French, you know, I'm not stupid." It's as if all the abuse experienced in childhood results in a trauma that manifests itself through psychological opposition to their own culture and language. That's kinda how bad it was. Leguet summarizes the whole situation in the following quote. "Breton is a peasant patois, unable to ensure communication even with the neighboring village, even more incapable of expressing the modern world, the world of tractors, automobiles, airplanes, and television, a language only good enough to talk to cows and pigs. From that, you get the refusal to transmit this language to children, a language considered to be a burden, a handicap in social promotion, a source of humiliation and shame." Which let's please collectively agree that is complete and total bull. Now, in 1950 there were more than 1 million speakers. Today, there's about 200,000 at the very best, 2/3 of which are aged 60 or older. Now, there are some efforts of revival, of course. There are the Wild schools, for example, aimed at teaching Breton through immersion. Attended by about 18,000 students, about 2% of all students in Brittany, and the numbers are projected to slowly increase. However, even having this happen took enormous effort. In the late 20th century, the French government considered incorporating the independent Breton language immersion schools into the state education system, which would be great in promoting the language. But this was blocked by the French Constitutional Council based on the 1994 amendment to the Constitution that establishes French as the sole language of the Republic. Therefore, no other language may be used as a language of instruction in state schools, which means that Breton language schools do not receive any funding from the national government, so the Brittany region has to fund them themselves as well as through private institutions. So saying that the language is in daily use by 200,000 plus native fluent speakers is a bit of a stretch to say the least. I feel like I made it sound really sad and didn't get to talk about the language itself, which I'm sorry for that. But it's issues like these that the vast majority of people are completely unaware of happening, while thousands of years of culture and tradition keep disappearing in the background of our daily lives, and I think it's very important to shed some light on this. Also, it's not like Britain is gonna die tomorrow. There are still thousands upon thousands of people speaking it, and there are many ways of promoting and teaching it, so hope is not all lost. Relatively speaking, Britain is a pretty good position here, being in Europe, being very well documented, and having a multitude of resources for it online. Unfortunately, the same can't be said about thousands of other languages throughout the world that are severely underdocumented and unrecognized and can literally disappear overnight. There's no point in comparing crappy situations though, and it's a completely different scale. But Breton is a pretty good example of language that can disappear in a blink of an eye without anyone even noticing. Don't be ashamed of your languages, people. Teach them to your children. Pass them on. And to anyone who tries to say otherwise, or that your language is useless, to them you can proudly say, screw you. Ken toch maar wel get besoin zou tret. Bevet braise.